This is going to be my July, August, and September book haul. If I seem done with filming this, it's because I am. I have wasted 3 hours now trying to film this, and let's see if this works out. Yeah, I have 19 books to talk about. Adultolescence by Gabby Hanna. This is the first book I read in July. Gabby's a YouTuber. She wrote some shit poetry. I didn't like this. I liked like 10 of the poems, and the art was amazing, enough to actually like get tattooed or whatever, but literally some of the poems were just her being like, this is filler because I need to make a page count. Like, she said that her inspiration was Shel Silverstein, and you can tell some of the poems that have rhymes in it are actually kind of cute, and they have a nice bounce to it, but most of them were not remarkable. My favorite poem, because I do this when I review poetry books, is called Hide, and it says, everyone's asking if I'm feeling okay. The truth is I'm always feeling this way. I'm just having a hard time disguising it today. The poems are really short. The art, to give you an example, this is the Vlog Squad, and you can highly tell who each of the people are, because she's a phenomenal artist, not so much author. If you're a fan of her, I would say pick it up, I don't know. Next. We Should All Be Feminist by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Oh, the other one I gave it 3 stars. This I gave it 4 stars. I listened to her TED Talk while I read this. This has more fleshed outness than the TED Talk, but it's still just basic feminism. They should teach it in schools because it should be common sense, but apparently it's not. And yeah, I have issues with Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie because she's very exclusionary. She doesn't include trans women because apparently you just have to have a vagina in order to be a woman. But yeah, it was a good political story. I would still recommend it. It's short, it's to the point, 4 stars. Next, I read an ebook because it had a bunny on the cover and it was free. It was called The Rabbit Ate My Homework. I don't remember the author's name, Elizabeth something, I think. It's basically about this little boy who gets blackmailed into helping his sister, hide a bunny and take care of it as a pet in their house. It got repetitive after a while, but the writing was decent, the characters were kind of cute, it has a bunny in it, and I feel like it would be very enjoyable for people who are the actual age audience that it's targeted for. Like I said, 3 out of 5 stars, and there was something else I wanted to say about it. Oh yeah, I basically got it as something for when I was bored, and I wanted something to read in spaces, like when I was on a break at work or something, and I had it on my phone. Next, I have The Crowns of Crosswell by D.E. Knight. This was the first book that I've ever gotten sent for review, the only book I've ever gotten sent for review, so I have it personally signed from the author because he sent it to me. And the cover is really gorgeous. It's that nice buttery texture. This is a YA fantasy book, the first book in a series that gets compared a lot to Harry Potter, and since I recently read Harry Potter, I can see that the similarities are abundant. It's about a girl who basically lives a shit life until she's whisked away by people who tell her, hey, you have an affinity for magic, let's go to this magic school. Basically Harry Potter. But the details and the things that are different towards, especially the last 2/3 of the book make it stand out a lot, and it's very different from Harry Potter towards the end. There is a queen that is a dark queen, and she does dark magic, and nobody wants her to be in power. And there's lots of cool things. There's a room called the Forgetting Room or something, and anything that's in it, people who are outside of the room will forget about forever, the existence of. D.E. Knight, the author, is kind of the whole Lemony Snicket concept. He's a character within the story. They have these magical creatures that are called Harrys. The school is divided into 2 different types of kids who can practice magic. There's Scrivenists, I think it's called, and Royals. And Royals can harness their magic through the crowns and their, the jewels in their crowns. And, yeah. It's really good. For whatever reason, it took me a while, and that's why I'm not giving it a full 5 stars. I just think that the first third kind of dragged, but the writing is very beautiful and lush, and I would highly recommend it. If there is a second book, I will definitely be interested in picking it up because the ending and the dance scene and all of that was phenomenal. So there's that. And then the last book that I read in July is Kindred Spirits by Rainbow Rowell. I'm Rainbow Rowell trash, I'm Star Wars trash, so obviously I love this. This is about a girl named Elena who is basically spending a few days in line waiting outside of the theater for the release of The Force Awakens. I'm not going to give you more information than that because I don't want to spend more time on it, and because it's only 63 pages, so it's best to go in kind of blind, but just know that every character is endearing, even side characters like the mom who's only there for a little bit. I just thought that it was really sweet, like her like doing little drive-bys and stuff, all the plot lines, seeing how they assimilate to life in the line after a few days. It's really cool, it's very cute, it's very Rainbow Rowell, and I really hope that she does something like this for episode 9 when it comes out. Definitely the best thing I read in July, one of my favorite things that I've read this year. 5 out of 5. Then we go through all the stuff that I read for BookTube-a-thon. There is 6 things because I DNF'd a book, and at first, when I filmed this video, the first 4 times I talked about the book I DNF'd, but now I don't give a fuck. I'm getting rid of it anyway. But let's talk about the other 6. We have Who is Frida Kahlo by Sarah Fabini. This is basically Frida Kahlo 101 for people who don't know basic facts about her. Since I knew all of these, it wasn't too much that was new, but I love the illustrations. I love just reading about her life over and over again. It was cute. I like just growing my collection of Frida books. I would recommend it to somebody who wants to get into her. And yeah, I read this for the challenge of read a book about something you want to do, because Frida was a Hispanic, queer, disabled, feminist, strong-ass woman who basically was in a creative field, and she made a name for herself, and, you know, I hope to do the same. I am the same, I'm all of those things, but I have not made a name for myself in the creative field that I'm in, which is writing. I just need motivation and hopefully luck, but she is who I want to be in life, and I adore her. 4 out of 5 stars. This one, which, after talking about it 4 times already within the past few hours, I'm kind of rethinking my rating. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, maybe it's more of a 3. This is called The Last Message Received, edited by Emily Trunco, illustrated by Zoe Ingram. This is basically based off of a Tumblr page where people would send in the last message they received before they stopped talking to somebody forever. Whether it was a breakup, whether it was a death, just whatever, why, like the last thing that somebody said or sent to them before they stopped talking. I think that the aesthetic of this book is really nice, like the illustrations and whatnot, and I think that some of them were interesting enough to tab because they seem like good writing prompts, but most of it just pissed me off. Most of it made me realize how disgusting human beings are and how disgusting they treat other human beings. How they kind of treat people away and throw them like they're like trash the second that somebody becomes non-relevant to them. The breakup texts were all disgusting. The friendship ending texts were confusing and infuriating. Some of them are really sad when it comes to death and stuff like that, but most of it will just anger you. Unless I guess you're not as sensitive as I am. So, I would still recommend checking it out if it was like at your library or something, and it does give resources for people who have gone through stuff in the back, but, you know, with a grain of salt. Then I reread The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. It's the first book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. Everyone knows what this is. I enjoyed it slightly less than I did when reading it now as an adult than when I read it when I was a kid, but I still adored it nonetheless. I loved returning to my favorite scenes and the characters that I know and love, and I'm excited to continue the series next year. That's all I had to say about it. I listened to some of the audiobook, read some of the ebook, and read some of this copy that I recently bought because I hated my original copy, and I love this cover because it has like scenes from the book on it, and I thought it was really cute. Next, we have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, the graphic novel by Ransom Riggs, illustrated by Cassandra Jean. I've already been a fan of Cassandra Jean because of her collaborative works that she's done with Cassandra Clare for the Shadowhunter world, so I love her art. I love the Miss Peregrine series. I've read the trilogy like original 3 books, and really enjoyed them, but this one I wanted to read, and then I wanted to read the Hollow City graphic novel and reread Library of Souls in preparation for Mouth of Fates. I highly enjoyed reading this because the story is still phenomenal and the illustrations were gorgeous. I would give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I might get a tattoo of when they're wearing the gas masks because it's gorgeous. I use this as the challenge to read a book and then watch the adaptation because I have owned the Miss Peregrine adaptation for a long time and I had never watched it, so I watched it. It was alright. It was mainly aesthetically correct rather than plot-wise correct, and the ending was a hot mess, but it was worth a rewatch and worth a watch in general. This 5 out of 5 stars. Then for read a book while wearing the same hat the whole time because I figured it was appropriate, I read Jughead by Chip Zdarsky and Erica Henderson. This is the first book in one of the new, like, modern-esque Archie, like, style comics. This is basically where they get a new principal, and Jughead doesn't like the new rules and all of the regulations that come with this principal, and he ends up trying to take him down and exposing, like, conspiracy theory at the same time. So, yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Some of the humor flew over my head, but I still found it really endearing and cute. It wasn't my favorite Archie story that I've read, but like I said, I still enjoyed it. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars, and I would also give it a shout out for actually confirming that Jughead is asexual on paper. So, yes. Last book I read, I just did it to say that I read 7 books, even though I DNF'd one, and one was, you're gonna see, is really short. This is A Leader Named Leia by Ella something. No, Jennifer Heddle. I don't know why it says something else on Goodreads. I don't know. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars because it's basic. It's not going to be some phenomenal writing, but it's basically Leia's story from all of the films, including The Force Awakens. It has some gorgeous kind of paint-esque illustrations, and it comes with stickers. It's a fun book for Star Wars fans that are kids, or if you're an adult and you're like me and you just wanted something that took 5 minutes to read. 3 out of 5 stars. So, we have all of those. Next, I've been holding up the covers, but I'm just, you know, when you're done with life. The next book that I read was Love, Life, and the List by Casey West. Looks like this, and it is my favorite thing that I read in August. Definitely one of my favorite reads of the year, even though I only gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because the ending angered me. I love the concept of this book. It's basically this girl who is an artist. She gets told by the head person at an art gallery that her art lacks heart and experience and stuff. So she makes a list. It's cute how she makes a list, but you know, you should read the book to see how she does that. Of 10, I think it was 10 things that should give her more life experience. So she starts doing these things, and then afterwards she recreates paintings of hers that were not phenomenally done. And she does it to see if she can improve her paintings by improving her life experiences. I adored the plot. I adored this idea, like I might want to do this in life, and I'll film it if I choose to do it, and see if it works for writing. And yeah, I loved it. I loved the main character. Her name is Abby. And I loved lots of the side characters. I thought that it was interesting that she chose to show representation of agoraphobia with Abby's mom. But Cooper, I remember his name because I fucking hated him. Cooper is Abby's best friend, and she's basically in love with him. And the whole book, that is an underlying plot line that goes throughout the whole thing, that she is just helplessly in love with him, and that one day she revealed her feelings to him like a couple months or a year ago, and he basically rejected her. And they've tried to move past it. So he's constantly like dating other girls in front of her and kind of rubbing it in her face. He's constantly pushing her into relationships with guys that she does not want to date, just so that she won't be alone. He takes her for granted. The ending, I would not forgive him. And just, he kind of treats her like shit because he knows that she'll allow him to, because she's just a lovesick puppy when it comes to him. And I did not care for Cooper. I feel like Abby could have deserved better. She had this friend that was an actress that she, like, developed this friendship with over the course of the book, and there was some high, like, you know, girl romance, like, subtext there, and I thought that it should have been explored because it would have been precious. Like, if they made the book gay and they just let Cooper go away forever, it would have been a full 5 out of 5 stars, because I love the characters, I love the writing, I love the plot, I just hated Cooper. And it could be because I was going through some weird breakup stuff at the time that it made me hate him even more, and hate the weird, sickening lovey-dovey turn that it took. But I just also think that I'm going to be one of those lame booktubers that's like, what if a young girl reads this and thinks it's okay for guys to treat her like this in her life because, you know, people model their lives around books. And use it as that. That's why I'm not sure. But I just did not care for him. Or I liked the plot, like, of her having feelings for him, but I feel like maybe just if the ending was different, it would have been a 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know. But it definitely made me want to read every Casey West book that is out there. So, there's that. Then, after that, I read another ebook, and that is Blank Space by Beth Bacon. It looks like that. It's very basic. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. Ironically enough, because I didn't enjoy it more than Love Life in the List, but technically it's rated more than that, but it's just because I couldn't give it anything less. It is a children's picture book. And literally, it romanticizes the blank spaces in books. It sounds weird, but I believe it's still free. I got it for free on Kindle, and if it's still free, I recommend that anyone watching this go read it, because it was just so endearing, and it made my heart happy. And it's like, I already romanticized the covers, the end papers, freaking naked books without dust jackets, the stories, the authors, everything. I even read, like, the acknowledgments and everything. I have never seen something that romanticizes the blank spaces in books, and now it's just, like, another part of the book to love. And I adored it. It was 10 out of 10. Then, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty finally. I read, in September. We're down to September, okay. I read Gloria O'Brien's History of the Future by A.S. King. I picked this up at a Dollar Tree, because I have heard many good things about A.S. King, and I liked his cover, and the plot seemed fucking weird, and it was, but in an amazing way. It's about these two girls who find this fermented bat when they're little, and they're like, let's put it in a jar, because, you know, why not? And then when they're older and they're going through their senior year and they're going through a very stressful and depressing and weird time in their lives, they go back to the jar and they see that the bat has kind of just turned into ash. So they decide to pour beer into the bat ash and drink the bat, because they believed that the bat was God. And after drinking the bat, fucking bear with me, they now have the ability to stare at somebody and know their entire history, like family lineage. Like, they're able to know how, like I can look at Jenny and know how her great-great-grandparents got to this country. And I can also look at her and know that her, like, you know, great-great-grandson in the future is going to become the next Hitler and do a massive genocide. Like, it was such a weird concept, and it was so good, and it handled the concept of grief really intricately and interesting. Gloria was a photographer, and the way they incorporated that element was, like, phenomenal. I loved this. It was a very sad, weird, uncomfortable book that took me a long time to read, but I loved it. And I really want to read more A.S. King after this, because it was so unsettling. And I gave it... I said 4 out of 5 stars. It's more like a 4.5. Like, it was pretty legit. But yes, read this. John Green blurbed it, which should be enough for you, because I don't have time for John Green haters. That should be enough for you. Next, I'll pull up the picture, even though it wasn't an ebook, and it's just because I cannot find it, and it's frustrating me, and I'm not going to waste time trying to find it. And it was a graphic novel, like comic trade, called Swing. It looks like that. And it is by Linda Sejic, who did the art and the lettering, and Matt Hawkins and Jenny Chway. I'm hoping that I did not butcher all of them. But it is basically a graphic novel, comic book series about this couple. And you see how they met in college and all that shit, and it's adorable, but it's really fast. Like, that part of how they met and stuff. Girl gets pregnant, and they get married, and you see them in their marriage life, and eventually, because they got married so young and so fast in their lives, they eventually get kind of bored and tired of their marriage. And it's them choosing to become swingers. It is so enjoyable and weird, and if you're somebody who's into the BDSM community and just weird sexual community in general, it is a really fun graphic novel to read. Plus, Linda Sedgwick, who is the wife of Stefan Sedgwick, who is a phenomenal artist. She's a great artist as well, so the art in there is gorgeous. I would flip through it if I knew where my copy was. But I gave it a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Because there was parts of it that were kind of like and I originally just picked it up because it was all I could find because I wanted Sunstone, and this is connected to Sunstone, but it's a different series, and so it was good, but it wasn't phenomenal. But I'm definitely going to read the second volume when it comes out in 2020.